everyone, it's Moose, and thank you so much for joining me back here. Still going to talk about 2021. Today we're going to talk about my biggest surprises and my biggest disappointments from last year. I don't have a set number of either one. I just kind of want to talk about the books that either surprised me or disappointed me. So let's get into it. I'm going to start with the books that disappointed me first because I want to end on a happy note. The first book I want to talk about is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. I've mentioned this on my channel before. I've talked about my feelings about this book. One, I think it was so hyped on BookTube that when I read it, that hype did not live up to my expectations. Two, it was just not what I was expecting at all. When I hear adult fantasy, this is not what I think about. And three, I should have looked up trigger warnings or something. I'm not usually someone that needs those. There's not a whole lot of things that I kind of try to steer clear of whenever I'm reading. But something happens in this book that I can't get past. And I really have no interest in continuing on with the series because of it. And it happened at the very, very end of the book. Just if in case this is something that bothers you, something happens to a child that just broke my heart, and I don't have any interest in either rereading this or continuing on with the series. It was a big disappointment for me. I did not enjoy it nearly as much, not nearly as much as I wanted to or thought I would. Second up on this list is Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas, the first book, Throne of Glass itself. Since then I have continued on with the series. I've finished Queen of Shadows. So Empire Storms is the next one that I need to read. But this book in particular, again, not really what I expected and honestly kind of boring to me. I was not really interested in the storyline of her entering the competition and, you know, working to be the King's Champion or whatever it's called. It just was not interesting to me. I found myself more interested as the series progresses. But this one itself, I thought was kind of boring and disappointing. Next up, I have Five Dark Fates by, who wrote this? Kendare Blake. Really, this whole series disappointed me, but I read, you know, how many are there? 3? 4? There's 4, I think. I read the first 3 in 2020, and then I finished it with the last book in 2021. Again, this whole series was kind of disappointing to me. I did finish the series because I listened to them on audiobook, so I didn't like dedicate a whole lot to it, you know, a whole lot of my time. I just listened to them kind of passively as I was doing other things. But again, this whole series was raved about here on BookTube, and I don't know, it wasn't what I was expecting, and it's just kind of boring to me, honestly. I don't know, the characters weren't like characters that I fell in love with. The world itself was kind of weird. The concept was interesting, but overall disappointing in the execution. I don't know, disappointing. Didn't care much for it. Moving on. Next up, I have 7 Ways to Kill a King by Melissa Wright. I listened to this one on audiobook, but it had been on my radar, not one that was on like my for sure want to read this TBR list, but it had been on my radar, something I thought I would be kind of interested in, and it was on Scribd for an audiobook. And I was looking for an audiobook to listen to. I was like, this one's available. I've been kind of wanting to read it anyways. Let's go for it. I felt like it was a little rushed, for sure. If this had been drawn out either into a longer book or maybe even a series, I felt like it would be really interesting. The concept was really interesting to me. I just felt like it was too short to really, you know, encompass everything that needed to happen. Yeah, it was just too short. And disappointing because of that. Okay, next up I want to talk about The Shadows Between Us by Tricia Levenseller. I'm not sure how to say that first name. Again, I like the concept of it. I thought it was interesting. The girl wants to go in and, you know, kind of backstab the prince or whatever. And I was invested and interested for most of this. I did a combination between audiobook and ebook for this. So maybe that contributed a little bit. I don't know. My first instinct is to say no. Just the story itself kind of ended on a lull for me. I don't know what it is about this, but it was disappointing. I wanted something more. Whatever. The last one I want to talk about is Radiance by Grace Draven. I feel like I'm a minority in this. Most people love this book and rave about it here on BookTube. And I think that might be why I'm a little disappointed by it. The hype surrounding it was not met. My expectations were not met based on that hype. I've kind of ranted about this book before, so I'll be brief. I thought it was cringe, is basically what it all comes down to. The interactions between the characters, the dialogue, the writing fell flat. I didn't really enjoy it. The only part I was like interested in and was like, man, this is something I want to read, was the epilogue. That was it.
Allie woke up. You needed some lovins.
Oh, with a burp. Oh, and you spitting. Hold on. So those were my biggest disappointments for 2021. Let's move on to a happier note and talk about my biggest surprises, because I do feel like I have a fair amount of these as well. Very brief. I'm just gonna, I don't have my copy because I convinced my husband to give it a try. Not the Fires of Vengeance, The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. I thought I would like this book, obviously, that's why I picked it up. But I was blown away by how much I liked it. It was one of my favorite books of last year, so much so that I convinced my husband to read it, who isn't really a fantasy reader. He's more into history books, not even historical fiction, like factual nonfiction books. I convinced him to read this book and he is loving it. He's almost halfway through and he keeps coming up to me and he's like, man, this book is wild. I'm like, yeah, it is. Wait till you get to the second one. So briefly, The Rage of Dragons, great. Next up, I want to mention The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This was the kind of sequel, meant to be a prequel to The Hunger Games. I think I was so pleasantly surprised by this because everyone I had heard talk about it hated on it and ranted about it. I know. Nobody liked it. Yeah, everybody else that I had heard talk about it said that they did not like it at all. So I went into it kind of like a little nervous and scared almost that I wouldn't like it. And maybe since I felt that way and I went into it with those expectations, I was pleasantly surprised by how much I did like it. I listened to it on audiobook, so maybe that makes a difference. I definitely think that the format you consume it from makes a difference, at least for me. But yeah, overall, pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed it. Next up, I kind of want to group this together. Legendary and Finale, which are the last two books in the Caraval trilogy by Stephanie Garber. Pleasantly surprised. Again, I listened to these on audiobook. I enjoyed the first book, but there had been a lot of time in between reading the first book and reading these. Either way, I thought they were really enjoyable. Again, I didn't have to dedicate a lot of brain power to them because I did listen to them. But overall, they were fun. I liked them. Again, if you're familiar with my channel, this will not surprise you, but I'm just going to lump this together and say Jennifer Beckstrand. She is a new author I discovered this year. She writes a lot of Amish romance novels. I just wanted something light. I didn't want a whole lot of smut or anything, but I did want romance. And so I picked these up on a whim and fell in love with them. They are so fun to me. I'm going to have to go searching for, different authors that write Amish romance books because I think I am running out of hers to read. So, but yeah, just her in general. If you're looking for some lighter-hearted, Christian-based romance, I definitely recommend her. She's also got humor in her books as well, which I think is one of the biggest reasons I like these. Next up, I want to mention A Court of Silver Flames by J Maas. This is the Nesta edition to the ACOTAR world. Pleasantly surprised. I listened to this on audiobook. And I went into it with kind of low expectations. Everyone else had raved about it and talked about how great it was. But personally, Nesta has never been my favorite. And I feel like people who really enjoyed it because they like Nesta. I couldn't care less about her character, if I'm being completely honest, just based on the original trilogy. She was fine. I didn't have anything against her. But yeah, I honestly didn't even care about picking this up right away. The only reason I listened to it is because it was on Scribd and I was looking for something to listen to. That being said, I think because my expectations were so low, I found myself really enjoying it. I'm really excited for the next one. I hope it's about Azriel and whatever the other sister's name is. I'm blanking right now. Oh, I can't remember her name right now. What the heck? Either way, I'm excited for that one. I'm sure she's going to write that, right? Right? That's a thing, right? I don't know. I need to look it up. Either way, surprised by this one. I enjoyed it. The next one I was pleasantly surprised by was A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kim. I always say Kimmerer, but it's Kimmerer. Either way, I was surprised by this one. Beauty and the Beast retelling. I think I was so surprised by it because I tried to read it before and got like 30 pages into it, and it was set in DC, so I thought it would be like an urban fantasy type thing. I don't like urban fantasies. I want completely different world. I don't want to be here at all. So since it was set in DC in the very beginning, I guess in my mind I was like, man, I'm not gonna like this. So I kind of DNF'd it for a while. I got like 30 pages into it and never picked it back up. And it was on my TBR shelf and it just kept staring me in the face. And so eventually I picked it up and really enjoyed it. And I think I did enjoy it. I think I was surprised because I initially thought I wouldn't like it. So thoroughly enjoyed it. I just finished the second one actually, Heart So Fierce and Broken maybe? I don't know, something like that. Really enjoyed that one as well, so I'm excited to finish the series out. Actually, I'm going through my list of things I read this last year. I think that's it. There are some other books that I really enjoyed last year, but they weren't surprises. I anticipated enjoying them, so I think that's about it. Those were my biggest disappointments and biggest surprises for 2021. Yeah, I don't know. I hope I don't have as many disappointments this year. I feel like I had more disappointments than I did surprises in 2021. So this year I hope I do a little bit better at picking things I know I'll like. Anyways, there we go. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to subscribe down below and leave a comment. Let me know what some of your biggest disappointments and biggest surprises were last year. And if you think I need to read any of them. You guys are so awesome. I'm so thankful for you. And we'll meet back here next time. See ya! You say see ya, fuzzy girl.